Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Attending the Second Cognition. I'm Endall Beall. This is going to be a very interesting presentation, and I'm looking forward to presenting it because I love shoving the Aryan elitist tyranny straight up their asses and exposing their hidden lies. As a Soika crew member, I also love undoing their magical programs, and every viewer who watches this video is in for a treat where gaining more of their cognitive freedom is concerned. This is going to take some explaining because there are multiple pieces of information that need to be sewn together before one can see the full picture of the tyranny. So just sit back and get educated. The title of this presentation is Ridding Yourself of Illuminati Programming. The psychologist Carl Jung, as misguided as many of his mystical psychological theories may have been, got it right when he figured out that the symbols were the language of the subconscious. Through his studies, he discovered that people all around the world who had never had interface with other people to compare notes saw and used many of the same symbols in their dreams and sacred artwork. This common language of symbols of the unconscious mind was the language of the Hapim hive infectious mind virus. The reason these symbols are common to all people is because no human being on this planet was not infected with this virus. I'm only going to deal with a few symbols in this video because that's all that's necessary to tell this story. The primary symbol is going to be the all-seeing eye. Modern conspiracy theorists focus on the eye in the pyramid on the back of the US dollar. Their claim is that it is a symbol of Freemasonry, which it is, but few have delved beyond the superficial aspects of conspiracy to really dig out the full meaning of the symbol. Some have realized that it is associated with the Eye of Horus or the Eye of Ra, and others have even figured out that it has something to do with solar symbolism. There are other investigators who have a vested interest in keeping their mystical religious beliefs intact, who serve as apologists, claiming the eye symbol is an ancient sacred symbol representing spirituality and consciousness, and the imagery can be found from ancient Sumerian cuneiform tablets into Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism. It is representative of the third eye in mystical Hindu religion, and it has been referred to in their ancient religious books, the Vedas. In Egypt, the Eye of Ra was illustrated in the form of a cobra, usually with wings in honor of the Egyptian goddess Nekhbet, the goddess hawk, and always with a solar disk. The solar eye was also identified with Wadjet, a goddess in the shape of a serpent, and also with Nekhbet, Maat, Hathor, and all goddesses that had been portrayed in the form of a lioness, Tefnut, Sekhmet, and Mekhet. The Egyptian pre-dynastic era included two warring factions, Upper and Lower Egypt. After their unison in 2900 BC, the country continued to be divided into two administrative districts, Upper and Lower Egypt. Thus, Egypt was divided into two parts patronized by two goddesses. The south was under the auspices of Nekhbet, and the north under the patronage of Wadjet. Nekhbet and Wadjet were daughters of Ra and thought of themselves as his all-seeing eye. From pre-dynastic times, you should interpret that to mean before the Aryan invasion led by the Anunnaki goddess Ninhursag playing her role as Horus, leading her forces to conquer Egypt, which I covered in We Are Not Alone Part 2. I explained about Ninhursag eventually subsuming the name of every goddess who existed in any land and taking on their names so she could harvest the energies of dedication from the believers in those multiple goddesses. I also explained in We Are Not Alone Part 2 that Ninhursag was a hermaphrodite, possessing both male and female sex organs, which allowed her to operate on both sides of the fence, playing the role of god or goddess energetically at her convenience. When you read or hear about this combining the alleged divine male and female and combining them into one, You are hearing doctrines created by Ninhursag in her dual sexual role, wanting humanity to be the same thing that she was in that respect. With what I have shared so far, a number of pieces should be falling into place, and that is that the goddess is associated with the sun as Ra or Horus, signified by the all-seeing eye. The Jewish six-pointed star represents the combining of the alleged divine masculine and feminine, so the symbol that graces the Israeli flag signifies the hermaphroditic worship of the ancient goddess Ninhursag, known to the ancient Hebrews as Asherah, Ashtoreth, or Ishtar, and who is represented in the Holy of Holies as the Shekinah, which signifies the womb of the goddess. The two pillars you often see in Freemasonic drawings represent the Asherah poles, which stood at the opening of the temple, representing the vulva that led to the Holy of Holies. The Asherah poles also represented the tree of life, and with the womb symbology just denoted, then the meaning of the mysterious tree of life becomes apparent and the mystery disappears. At some point, either before or shortly after the arrival of the Aryan invading armies created by Ninhursag arrived on this planet, Ninhursag made arrangements with the Hapim Hive Collective. When we understand the goddess nature for the foundation of many of these icons and the iconography, then we can expand it into other symbols representative of the Hive Collective and its infection of humanity. In Hindu religious mythology, the one singular god in the universe is called Brahman. Every human being, according to their beliefs, is a part of this alleged divine consciousness, and the individual human is called an Atman, or a cell in the collective oneness of the cosmos. Brahman is often symbolized by the sun. This Hindu solar cultism has been grafted wholesale into the New Age through Theosophy, and its solar ideologies coupled with their seven rays belief systems initiated by Madame Blavatsky, the creator of Theosophy. For further correlations with solar cultism and Hinduism and the Hive, Brahman and the Vedic Hindu religion are found with the primary gods of the Vedas, the two-faced god Agni, who is a god of fire, cremation, and human sacrifice. Agni and his everlasting fire are also symbolized by the sun in Hindu ideologies. In similarity to Theosophy's sun and its seven rays ideology, the fire god Agni had 7 tongues. Agni's everlasting fire translates into modern Freemasonry and other secret society cults as the eternal flame. It is this eternal flame that is seen in the ancient triple goddess Hecate, representing Ninhursag's tripartite hermaphrodite nature, who also held her torches. This eternal flame symbology is also found represented in the logo of Columbia Pictures. In all this disparate seeming ideology, we find the sun associated with goddess worship, the fire associated with the goddess Saraswati in the Hindu Vedas as collaborator with Agni, the all-seeing eye of presumed enlightenment, and the sun and eye associated with the infinite Brahman, or head of the hive pyramid hierarchy. Within this symbolism, you often find the eye surrounded with the petals of a flower. That flower represents a lotus, which was the sacred flower of Isis, played by Ninhursag, and of which varieties the blue lotus has hallucinogenic properties. I covered the truth about the Hindu drug soma in my recent video, The Two Definitions of Ego. And although the psilocybin mushroom that grows in cow shit was probably soma, any other hallucinogenic plant could serve to loosen the grip of the waking state of consciousness so the Hapim virus could move forward and manipulate human minds. The blue lotus could produce this same state. And what surviving records we have of the ISIS cult in the Mediterranean indicate that for a handsome fee, an acolyte could purchase a more intimate experience in her temples where they would allegedly receive visions from the goddess. So when you see the symbol of the eye with the flower petals around it, it is representative of the psychedelic variety of the lotus flower, no different than what the psilocybin mushroom or any other entheogenic drug like LSD, DMT, ayahuasca, mescaline, or peyote can produce. The sun symbol, the eternal flame, and the third eye are all representative of that mystical state where the Hapim virus could take charge of one's mind and deliver those visions of heaven or whatever the hive wanted people to believe. Because the hive collective was all interconnected into a hierarchy of control with a single controlling consciousness, which I will call Brahman for the sake of convenience, This alleged all-seeing eye of God was only the Brahman master hive intelligence that could tap into any other hive cell that infected human consciousness any time it chose to. This is the real meaning of the all-seeing eye and what it truly represents. It has nothing to do with God and everything to do with the Hapim hive virus infection. With the destruction of the Hapim collectives everywhere, the all-seeing eye has been poked out. It no longer exists, and the Aryan elite of the world know this to be true. Their eternal flame as a spellbinding symbol of control has been extinguished, so that symbol no longer has any power from an energetic standpoint. The purpose of this video is to inform our viewers that the power these symbols possessed over our psyches can no longer be enforced once one removes the effect of the virus programming from their cellular memory, and I'm going to provide the tool in this video to undo all that subliminal programming that is present in every human being on this planet. I will be providing some instructions for cell talk that I provide in our recent book, The Second Cognition Toolbox, so every viewer that takes the opportunity to remove this programming from themselves will be free of such tyrannical, symbolic control forever. First, I need to explain how this works. What follows are some excerpts directly from the Toolbox book. To understand this program removal, we're going to use the analogy of a tape player as an example of how to navigate your way through this cellular clearing set of instructions. Each of these programs that triggers from these symbols can be viewed as tapes sitting in a tape library, and they only pull out to play whenever you see a symbol, whenever it plays into your consciousness. When it does this, it's called a trigger. So it triggers a cellular response, which makes the program play below your conscious awareness. Now, after I provide the instructions at the end, the simplest way for you to understand this is to imagine that your thumb, and it doesn't matter which thumb you use, is the fast forward button on a tape player. Once you see the instructions, and if you agree with the instructions, simply say, "I agree," which is what gives your cell system the approval to do the clearing process. And once you say, "I agree," you can use any finger to press against your thumb and make that fast forward button play to pull these programs off of you. When you do that, your fingers are going to stick together, and you're going to feel the stick. You'll have a hard time separating them until the process is complete. What this sticking does is show you on a physiological level that the program clearing is actually working. If you have problems with understanding this, rewind the video before you agree to the instructions and listen to this part again. It's not really that difficult. The importance of this study is to show you that no matter where you turn, you are being bombarded with this symbology from every angle. It's in magazines, books, movies, TV, on billboards, with gas station logos, grocery store chains. It's fucking everywhere. Now, the question you must be asking is why knowing this is so important, and why do they keep shoving these symbols up our ass every time they get a chance? Here is the answer. The occult Aryan operators on this planet know that these symbols have the power to control on a subliminal level. They may not know fully what I am about to share here, but they know enough to continually use these symbols in their many varied and stylized forms to subconsciously control their human herds. Because these symbols are ancient, and they are the language of the Hapim hive, we all have programs plugged into us on a cellular level that make us react to these symbols on a subconscious level when we see them. Each symbol is a form of energy harness and mechanism for control. I can't tell you what each individual symbol does to the cell system and the subconscious mind, but I don't think we need to know those specific details. We only need to know why they are used and how to stop the hidden tyranny they present. Because every human being, aside from newborns that have arrived since we eliminated the hives in late 2016, carried within them a Hapim hive cell, these virus cells embedded the controlling mechanism of their species to control their human herds better in our cellular memory. Each of these symbols calls upon a cellular program, probably based on ancient and subliminal fear of the gods and their magic. We are not consciously aware of these programs, but that doesn't mean that they aren't running in the background of the body, mind, and cell system whenever we see them. I use the analogy of a computer tape in explaining how the cell system functions in demystifying the mystical. Using that imagery, then you must realize that every time we see these symbols, the cell system pulls out a tape and starts running a subliminal program below our waking awareness. Living in large metro areas, we are especially prone to constant bombardment of these symbols just driving down the streets, past gas stations and stores that use these symbols in their corporate logos. We are further bombarded through other avenues named above. So every time we see these symbols, whether we are consciously aware of them or not, our cellular memory is constantly playing the programmed tapes plugged into us by the virus on a subconscious level, playing tape after tape day in and day out, depleting us of our energy. This is one reason that people often seem fatigued for no apparent reason. It is because their cell system is being deluged with constantly running programs initiated whenever we see these symbols. Pretty dastardly, eh? There's substantially more to this subject matter that I will probably share in other videos soon, but the main objective of this video was to reveal this symbolism and what it really means and what it does to us on a cellular level. Before this presentation is finished, I'm going to provide the Cell Talk instructions, which are also contained in the Toolbox book, for any viewer who chooses to remove this programming from your cellular memory, and which will leave you totally free of this kind of subliminal mind control on a cellular level. Before I provide these instructions, I want the viewers to know that the only reason the Aryan elite have had as much control over humanity they have since they landed here 6,000 years ago is because of their knowing association with the Hapim Hive Collective and its ability to manipulate the human psyche through the virus infection we all carried. These elite assholes are not all powerful. They use these symbols everywhere to make people believe that they have more power than they truly possess. This whole powerful Illuminati propaganda is a cognitive scam designed to keep people afraid of them because they know humanity outnumbers them 99 to 1. They run this psychological scam because this is the only way they can maintain their power, by making people believe that they are all powerful and untouchable, and this scam can only work so long as humanity keeps falling for the lies. The only power they had was through manipulation of the hive through the virus that once infected your mind. Now that virus is dead, and they no longer have that control mechanism over your consciousness unless you choose to continue to give them that control by buying into their psychological bullshit propaganda. The cellular instructions that follow will rid you of every last vestige of that programming driven by the virus that programmed into your cells. Without even this residual control over your consciousness, they lose what little edge they have left to manipulate humanity. They will be nothing but little men hiding behind the curtain, just like the Wizard of Oz, and they will be just as powerless to control you through this type of programming. Here's the instructions. I instruct my cells to find any and all originating programs associated with controlling symbols plugged in by the Hapim virus or any other source in this life and all other lives I may have lived in this creation or in other creations, regardless of whether this occurred in parallel timelines, past, present, and future, and regardless of whatever dimension or form I may have inhabited. This uninstall includes any and all programs that may have attached to my Soika through the incarnational process and all of the foregoing parameters and situations, both known and unknown. I instruct my cell system to uninstall any and all the defined programs in their entirety, never to be reinstalled. I also instruct my cells to remove any and all programs, layers, additions, or alterations to these originating programs in their entirety, never to be reinstalled in any form or any fashion. These programs are to be uninstalled without trauma, stress, or duress on the body, mind, or spirit, and removed in a fast-forward mode. Once this uninstall of all these programs is complete, I instruct my cells to backfill any and all voids with positive energies and information conducive to the growth of my Soika. You only need to read these instructions and agree with them one time for your cells to dump the programming forever. It is not something that will need repeating, for once done, it's done, and you are free from this programming forever. Many of you may not fully understand the import of this video, but I can guarantee you the elites will shit their pants when they get word of it, because it takes a lot of power to control humanity away from them. Thanks for listening. I'm Endall Beall. Until next time, Stay the course and don't give up on yourself.